Hi everybody and welcome to another lesson. In this series of preparation classes, I am going to focus on Duolingo English test. Duolingo English test has become a little bit popular recently for obvious reasons that we talked about last time. However, there are some caveats and nuances that you need to take into consideration when you want to apply for this test, some of which we talked about last lesson, like whether or not this is a test that is acceptable by your institution. You can go back to the last lesson and review that, but today we're going to talk a little bit about the second thing that makes Duolingo English test a little bit challenging / controversial for some people. I know there have been some concerns and some complaints about how the test is supervised and controlled, and a lot of people felt that their test was cancelled by mistake or it was unfair, they had to do it again. So today we're going to review all the policies and rules to make sure that you know everything before you want to set up your environment or apply for this test, making sure that this test is the right test for you. So if you go to the website, you see there are some information about the test and how you can take the test, and there's also a little bit of a walkthrough here. We'll talk about it as well, and how you will get your results. And then you can click purchase, sign in, and once you sign in, you see the test pricing and everything, and then you can add it to check-in and stuff like that. Because you do the test of Duolingo at home from almost any location, the providers of this test, they want to make sure that the test is authentic, it is something that has credit, has value. So more institutions and more universities accept that. So they have very strict policies on how you do the test. Some of which are very important, some are naturally acceptable. So let's take a look at them one by one, and I'm going to walk you through them. So we have, if you go back to the homepage, you can go to the test information and review the rules. The most important and the most discussed point of this test is don't look away from the screen except when typing. So as I am right now, be the judge of that. So I am right now looking at you guys at my camera, okay, and then right now I'm looking away. So all of these are problematic in the test. So you should not take your eyes off the screen. Right now my eyes are on the screen. I am typing, okay, my eyes are on the screen, I'm typing. Sometimes I look down on my keyboard to type something and then look back at the camera, look back at the screen. All of this is okay, especially when I'm typing. When I don't need to type and when I don't need to engage with my keyboard, then my eyes must be on the screen. If I start looking left or right, they may consider this as cheating and my test will be cancelled. The second point, which is very important in almost any exam, you shouldn't do it. Come on. I know a lot of teachers are forcing you to memorize certain templates and stuff, but that's not gonna work. Yes, templates are helpful just for you to have some idea of what to say or what to write, but you need to produce your own language and your own speech. If you present something that is memorized, like a piece of paragraph or piece of statement that is memorized, it's going to get flagged, and then there will be people who will check your test and may cancel your test. So don't do this. Try to practice so much that you can talk about any picture or any with comfort. Or in writing, you can discuss and write about anything naturally on your own. Do not speak until instructed. If in the middle of the test, other than when you have to speak, like the timer starts and you have to speak, other than that, if you do speak, you will this will be a problem. You will be flagged, and then you may get your test canceled. So be very careful with that. I know I have heard stories where there are some organizations and centers that they tell people that we will do the test on your behalf. I mean, they actually charge people some extra money and they say, okay, we will pass it for you or we will help you. Don't go for these things because it's a dead end. I know a lot of people who did that, and I haven't heard any success stories from these kind of fake tests. Duolingo is a very manageable and easy test. You will realize that in this course. So just a little bit of practice and dedication and you're gonna get the score that you need. Do not interact with Anyone during the test that is natural, of course. Don't let if you're in your bedroom, don't let anybody knock or come in or call you out, or you call your mom or something like that. Anything that happens, you should not interact with people, because if you do, you're gonna lose your test. And if you're using VPNs and things like that, you're gonna their system will realize that, and then you will get your test canceled. If you're in a country where access is limited, you need to contact support. So I heard some of my students, for example, in Iran, where they could not access Duolingo website or Duolingo features, they can actually submit a ticket to the support, and they will guide them on how to deal with that situation. And this one is the kind of the most tricky part of the test, and this is what makes me hesitate when I want to recommend Duolingo to a lot of people, and that is the fact that you cannot use headphones or earbuds. I know this is a security measure that they are having, but it makes focusing during listening very hard for a lot of people. So this is a serious point. You need to make sure that you take that into consideration. The rest are actually quite obvious. You should have your keyboard, mouse, and phone camera. Everything should be visible. You should not block cameras using anything. And any other devices like your headphones, anything on your desk, papers and stuff, all of these things should be removed, because when you want to log in, everything will be checked. You need to make sure that the phone that you're using is something you can rely on. Please put it on airplane mode before you get into the test. You don't want to create a bit of a chaos while you're preparing for this test. All of this can be, of course, practice at home. And finally, let's talk about the environment. So usually a bedroom is your best choice, but again, there are a few rules about that. It says it should be a quiet, well-lit room without distraction. So definitely a bedroom with windows would be ideal, or if your bedroom doesn't have windows, you can turn on the lights. Make sure you have enough lights. Make sure your internet is reliable. Make sure that you're not sharing your internet with anybody else during the test, because a little bit of interruption with your internet might cause you to lose your test. Of course, your computer must have cameras and microphones. All of this can be tested when you sign up for the test, and you should have a valuable passport or government ID. Again, some countries have some weird situation with their IDs. Make sure that you check when you're signing up, you check that your passport is accepted, your ID is accepted. It's usually a passport, I think, is the safest option. But again, for example, your government ID may not be accepted. So again, depending on your location, be careful about that. But I haven't heard anybody complaining about having problems with the passport. So if you have a passport, it's better. And make sure all your devices are fully charged, so you won't run into any problems. The test is going to take around 45 minutes, so you don't need a lot of charge, but again, you make sure that everything is in full charge and best mode, so you don't get stressed or distracted during the test. All right, everybody, so make sure that you take these rules and situations into consideration before you're applying for the test. Duolingo is relatively the easiest test that you can take and prepare for in a very short time, compared to like IELTS and TOEFL and things like that. But if you still want to consider another test from home, TOEFL 2026 would be also your second option. There are a lot of videos on my channel about it. In this course, I'm going to walk you through every part of the test. For example, in the next lesson, we're gonna take a broad look at different parts of the test, and then I'm gonna talk to you about how each part is tested and why they have, for example, different sections. In the following lessons, in the following weeks, we will get into each part, and I'll tell you a few do's and don'ts about it, and then tell you ways you can practice. Remember, as always with any tests, practice is the key. So make sure that if you're applying for a test, any test, Duolingo or whatever, make sure that you have dedicated enough time for practice and cleared up your schedule for that. There are going to be more lessons coming soon. If you're taking Duolingo, let me know in the comment section when you're taking the test. I may have some extra advice for you. And if you have any questions, as always, drop them in the comments and share this video with anyone who's preparing for Duolingo, and I'll see you soon.